In this week's drive, we go racing with a little bit extra on the side, see a new team get to grips with their new car, try out a new track in the worst weather, and watch as the incredible make the impossible seem ordinary. All this and more in this week's Drive. After an 18-year hiatus, the World Touring Car Championship is back. 8 manufacturers will contest 10 meetings across 3 continents this year. The season opener was in Monza. Magny-Cours in France hosted rounds 3 and 4. The first race was a relatively sedate affair. Jörg Müller took command early on and showed no signs of ever relinquishing his lead. There were few significant casualties to report. The hugely experienced Swiss Alain Menu was a notable exception. He and Stefano D'Aste were early visitors to the beach. Müller of the BMW Team Deutschland led from start to finish, and second was reigning European touring car champion Andy Priaulx. The BMW Team UK man trailed by 2.8 seconds. Ricard Raidel's Seat was third, ahead of Gabriele Tarquini's Alfa. Richard Virenque, a former Tour de France King of the Mountains, waved the flag. In race 2, the first 8 finishers lined up in reverse order, with Augusto Farfus of Brazil in pole position in his Alfa, and in the race at least 10 cars challenged for the lead. Nobody seemed to want it more than Jörg Müller as he chased his brother and Farfus. The pressure got to the young Brazilian Alfa driver though, as he outbraked himself, went in too hot and allowed the BMW brothers through, Dirk ahead with Jörg behind. After the first round at Monza, the pair headed the championship. Jordi Genet was in the wars, accident-damaged bodywork causing tyre damage. Priaulx wasn't letting the Müllers get away, hanging on to Dirk's rear bumper. Dirk's 6th place in round 3 saw his points advantage reduced, and he needed a swift return to form in round 4. He got it, and Jörg went on to complete a double victory, taking the flag 5 seconds ahead of Dirk. But a bizarre incident on the final straight took the gloss off Dirk's performance. Whatever happened, Dirk spun at speed after crossing the line and then backed into Farfus's car, damaging the Alfa's rear suspension. Tom Coronel won the Independence race in his Seat, but after the race, Coronel was excluded, his car failing to comply with a minimum ride height, promoting Karl Rosenblatt. But for now, pending any action by the authorities, Dirk stays top of the standings with 29 points, but it's tightened up considerably. Jörg is within 4 points and Priaulx another 2 back. Next round is at the fast and flat Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in England. Two British drivers were on the front row for the second round of the 2005 DTM season. Gary Paffett qualified 0.2 of a second faster than Jamie Green. Finland's Formula One world champion Mika Häkkinen was third, and reigning champion Mattias Ekström of Sweden was fourth. Overall standings leader Jean Alesi, who won the opening round at Hockenheim, had problems in the pits when his crew failed to remove the refuel vent can. The French, former Ferrari Formula One driver, rejoined the race with the can still attached. Half a lap later, the can fell off, and we can only imagine the pit-to-car radio conversation. Green's race ended on lap 12 when he found himself on the beach after a collision with Ekström. Paffett went into the pits on the 17th lap, so Häkkinen led a DTM race for the first time, but the Finn entered the pits a lap later and lost time as the front pneumatic jacks failed to retract. The incident didn't deter Häkkinen, who passed Pierre Caffer's Audi on lap 22 to move into third place. With 11 laps remaining, Dane Tom Christensen and Häkkinen pitted together, but Christensen emerged in front. Paffett, second at Hockenheim, claimed victory in 1 hour and 3 minutes. Christensen was 4.4 seconds behind, while Häkkinen came third to secure his first podium finish in only his second DTM race.
The team did a great job. The car was perfect. The pit stops were perfect. They did an excellent job. And I had a pretty faultless race. I mean, I didn't make many mistakes. I didn't see too many cars that close behind me, so it was you know, I didn't have to push that hard, which was nice not to have to use the tyres too much. But it's great knowing that we can take the points home and go away from here leading the championship this year.
Paffert's win compensated for last year's race when he finished first but was disqualified afterwards because his car ran out of fuel on the slowdown lap. Japan hosted some of the world's fastest cars when the Indy Racing League returned to the twin-ring Motegi for a 200-lap, 300-mile race.
Danica's not backing out. She's got the high line. She's not backing out, Scotty. She's moving to the front of them, to the front.
Moments after the race got underway, it went under caution. Jeff Bucknam, making his IndyCar Series debut, spun in turn 2 on the first lap and touched Scott Dixon's car, taking himself and the former champion out of the race. Rookie Danica Patrick, the lone female in the field, started on the front row and raced into the early lead. Sam Hornish claimed that lead on lap 19, then held it for 19 laps before Patrick regained it. Dario Franchitti went on to take over the lead from Patrick and hold it on and off throughout the rest of the race. On lap 76, Tony Kanaan briefly took over the lead from the Scot. Kanaan, the reigning IndyCar Series champion, had his streak of running on the lead lap at the end of a race ended at 19 races.
Teammate Dan Weldon sitting in third. We'll step aside. You go.
On lap 114, and much to the crowd's dismay, Japanese driver Roger Yasukawa was forced to retire with mechanical problems. The fifth caution of the race was called as Yasukawa's car trailed a plume of smoke and officials wanted to check for debris. On the restart, Franchitti lost the lead. Coming round the first turn after the green flag, Franchitti got into dirty air, lost downforce and grip, and suffered the inevitable. Dan Wheeldon then slid into the top spot. Franchitti's car was beyond immediate repair and he didn't finish the race that he had led for 67 laps. Weldon held the lead until lap 151 when Thomas Scheckter, son of South Africa's 1979 Formula One world champion Jody, took it over from him.
Here for the last few races. Oh my! Look at this, 3 wide. You gotta be kidding! Kanaan goes to Tony Kanaan.
With just 3 laps remaining, Kanaan's car ran out of fuel and he headed into the pits. Scheckter, who was a lap ahead at the time, kept going, but then his car also ran dry and the lead went to second-placed Weldon. Kanaan eventually finished 6th, ceasing his run of top 5 finishes at 18 consecutive races. Luckily, Weldon did not run out of fuel himself until after he passed the checkered flag and claimed his 3rd win of the year, which came under caution after a last-lap crash involving Helio Castroneves. Fast Lady Danica was 4th, the hapless Scheckter credited with 10th, 2 laps down. The start of the Saturday night NASCAR race was delayed 30 minutes by rain, but there were no further weather problems. But there was a problem for Matt Kenseth on lap 167. He lost his right front tyre and slammed into the wall. The 5th caution period of the race came out on lap 173 when Kyle Petty spun and hit the outside wall with the back of his car.
It looked like he just came around. And Kyle, when this happened.
There was a big crash on lap 206. Jimmy Johnson and Tony Stewart were both braking when Johnson nudged Stewart just enough to spin him, resulting in a chain reaction crash. In all, 6 cars were involved. Ricky Rudd's in-car camera showed that he and 3 other drivers could do nothing to avoid the crash. Kurt Busch, who led for 219 of the 312 laps, avoided trouble and took the checkered flag for the race victory. The defending champion emphatically put behind him a streak of bad luck that included crashes at 4 consecutive events, including an IROC race a week before at the Texas Motor Speedway. Busch jumped from 4th to 2nd in the overall standings and trails series leader Jimmy Johnson, who finished 15th, by 173 points. Volkswagen have signed 2 new high-profile team members for the 2006 Dakar Rally. South African driver Geniel de Villiers and Sweden's Tina Turner as co-driver. They'll form the manufacturer's 3rd team at the event, alongside Jutta Kleinschmidt and Fabrizia Pons and Bruno Sabi and Michel Perrin. De Villiers and Turner acquainted themselves with the race Touareg in tests held in Poland.
I've done the Dakar Rally now for 3 years in a row, and unfortunately Nissan withdrew from the Dakar Rally, and Volkswagen gave me the opportunity to continue, and which I would would have really have liked to do, and to have such a great opportunity with a team, a big team like Volkswagen, I think for me is very important, and there was no doubt in my mind that it was a good decision to make.
Regular viewers of Drive will recognise Tina as the girlfriend of reigning DTM champion Matthias Ekström, but she and Genil have raced together before.
It's wrong, like this. It feels very friendly, and Chris I know since a long time, and Genil of course as well. I've won my first rally in the Desert Challenge with him. We have had good results together, we have worked together before, and so yeah, it's a very, very good concept.
The 39-year-old Swede was a World Rally co-driver between 1985 and 98 before switching to rally raids with various drivers, including Jutta Kleinschmidt. De Villiers drove for Nissan between 94 and the start of this year and has often beaten more illustrious teammates, including Colin McRae and Ari Vatanen.
Yes, I would say so.
We decided in favour of De Villiers because he drove very strongly in the previous Dakars. He finished 3 Dakars completely accident-free, very strong performances, and included stage victories. He was the best Nissan driver 3 times in succession. He was available and one of my absolute favourite drivers. We are very happy to have won him over to us, and we expect a lot of him. I'm sure we have gained a real top driver.
Roll on next year's Dakar Rally. The Shanghai circuit hosted its first race in September last year, the Formula One Chinese Grand Prix. And now the MotoGP riders have had a chance to try out the new track. World champ Valentino Rossi made his first laps of the 5.3-kilometre course ahead of the third round of the season. The defending champion ran arch-rival Sete Gibernau, who also got in some slow sighting laps, off the track to win the opening race in Spain and finished second behind Brazil's Alex Barros in Portugal. Chinese fans flocked to their new circuit to meet the stars that they've only ever seen on television. The track is built to challenge competitors and technicians and provide good racing to TV audiences.
The first impression is very good. The track is incredible. I expect from the picture fastest track, but it's quite tight. I think it's very technical, strange corners, long corners, where it's difficult to understand the line, the perfect line. And also around the track is incredible. It's like a dream with lake, water, and all. Very good also for a holiday, not only for a race.
But on race day, the weather ruined Sete Gibernau's hopes. The Spaniard soon surrendered his hard-won pole position. John Hopkins and Kenny Roberts sailing past him as he drifted wide on the opening bend. Still, at least Gibernau managed to stay on his machine for the duration of the 22 laps. The rain, wind, fog and persistent drizzle turned parts of the track into a skid pan. Carlos Checa was road testing his leathers and the durability of his Ducati. After one lap, Rossi had already worked his way up to second place from his second-row starting position. And after Roberts retired his Suzuki, Rossi and his Yamaha inherited the lead over Sete Gibernau and Max Biaggi on their Hondas. But the story of the day was the performance of Frenchman Olivier Jacques, racing because regular rider Alex Hoffman was injured. Jacques made the most of his outing on the Kawasaki, picking his way up to second place. Excessive tyre wear severely cut Gibernau's race pace, and his Honda teammate Marco Melandri slipped by to clinch the last place on the podium. Victory number 2 of the new season, though, to Valentino Rossi, ahead of Jacques, the stand-in who gave Kawasaki their best ever result in MotoGP, and Melandri, the former 250 world champion, scoring another solid result in his first season on the big 4-stroke V5 Honda. For the man who's rewriting the record books, the event was a career highlight.
Yes, I think in my career is the most big surprise I have, because we don't expect for sure to win today. In the dry condition we had some problem, but also in the wet this morning was already quite good, but it's possible improve. Make some modify on the setting, and the bike work very, very well in that very difficult condition.
After 3 races, Rossi's back on top. Gibernau's challenge looks shaky, and the much-vaunted promise of Max Biaggi would seem to be a lost cause. Australian Casey Stoner started on pole position in his third 250 class race and led virtually from start to finish, although Andrea Dovizioso did chase hard. Reigning champ Dani Pedrosa took third. Stoner backed up his win in Portugal with the first Chinese Grand Prix and closed the gap on the Italian to just 3 points at the top of the standings. As usual, the 125 race was a torrid affair despite the conditions, but the battle was between Mattia Passini and countryman Fabrizio Lai. In the run to the flag, Passini elbowed Lai aside to win by just 6/100ths of a second. In his first ever appearance, Gabor Talmaxi of Hungary qualified and finished third for KTM. Kallio qualified on pole but faded in the race, while the pair who finished on top in China are close to the top of the points table. The Supermoto World Championship kicked off in Italy. There's a thought that the S2 class may become the more popular in Supermoto, and one of the reasons is the arrival of Belgian Eddie Seal, who's moved over from the bigger S1 class. Italian Massimo Beltrami showed how determined he is for championship points by strongly holding off Attilio Pignotti in the early part of the second S2 heat. Beltrami held on to the lead for much of the race, but Seal's patience paid off as he shadowed the two leaders. When the Italian crashed in the dirt and had to restart his bike, he dropped back to fourth place. Seal only had Pignotti in front of him and showed no sympathy for the Italian's fans as he slipped into first place with a wonderful pass. After winning both heats, Seal has a perfect 50 points after the European Grand Prix, 8 points clear of the consistent Davide Gozzini. Thierry van den Bosch is back to defend his S1 crown, and after finishing fourth in Heat 1 following a mid-race crash, the Frenchman was determined to show his rivals he's the one to beat this season in Heat 2. Belgian Gerald Delapine had matched countryman Seal by winning the opening race in his class, and he led again early in Heat 2. But van den Bosch bided his time in second before squirting his Husqvarna up the inside and the brakes to take the lead for good. From then on, he cleared away to leave Delapine and the Italian Ivan Lazzarini to scrap for second place. Delapine went on to claim 22 points for his second place, which added to his 25 for winning Heat 1 leaves him atop the standings after the first round. But van den Bosch's comfortable victory at Heat 2 will leave his rivals worried ahead of the next round, Namur in Belgium. Speedway's opening round, the European Grand Prix, was in Poland. Sweden's 5 times world champion Tony Rickardsson was easily the best rider in the heat stages, claiming 5 wins from 5 rides. He went into the first semi-final against Australian Lee Adams, Polish home favourite Jaroslav Hempel and Andreas Jonsson of Sweden. Rickardsson dominated the race despite Hempel making an excellent start. Once Rickardsson had taken the lead, it was a matter of the placings, with only the top 2 qualifying for the final. Hempel and Adams seemed to cross the line at the same time, but the replay showed the pole had lifted his wheel and Adams, racing in red, sneaked into the final. Australian world champion Jason Crump, who was runner-up 3 times before claiming the title last year, grabbed the lead on the first lap of the second semi-final and was never headed. Crump is aiming to join Speedway's exclusive club. This is the 60th running of the championship since Australian Lionel van Praag became the first world champion back in 1936. 31 riders have won the title since, but only 9 of them have gone on to become multiple winners, with New Zealand's Ivan Major winning 6 times. Rickardsson fought off a spirited challenge from Antonio Lindback at the start, and once he'd moved into the lead, there was only ever going to be one winner. Crump struggled and found himself at the back of the field, but as Rickardsson opened up a huge lead, Crump passed Lindback but couldn't catch Adams. Rickardsson won with some distance between himself and Adams in second place. Crump was third, while Lindback appeared to have problems and failed to cross the line, but still picked up 16 points with his 4th place. Rickardsson collected 25 for his efforts in Poland, while Adams scored 20 and Crump got 18 for third. The Trials World Championship moved to Spain for the second round of the outdoor series. Veteran Dougie Lampkin won the first round in Portugal. But the Briton was unable to repeat the feat in Spain, a two-lap total of 37 penalty points, meaning that he had to settle for 5th place. Ahead of Lampkin, there was plenty of excitement for the home fans, with 3 Spanish riders fighting it out for the podium positions. Reigning outdoor world champion Takahisa Fujinami was consistent, picking up 18 penalties on lap 1 and 15 on lap 2 to finish the event 4th with 33 penalty points. The Japanese rider has moved up to 5th overall in the defence of his title. Mark Friescher dropped just 10 penalty points on lap 1, but it wasn't quite enough to put him in the lead. Friescher added 14 further penalty marks on the second lap for a combined total of 24 and 3rd place. A solid performance after his disappointing 6th in Portugal. Riding a Montesa, he was just 2 points off the Sherco ridden by Kabastani. Albert Kabastani made a great start, giving himself every chance of success in his hometown, finishing the first lap on 6 marks. There was no surprise when Kabastani found himself 4 marks clear of Mark Friescher, who dropped to 10 on lap 1. It was a good performance after a disappointing result, despite a fantastic second lap in Portugal. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to maintain his technique on his second lap and ended with a total of 23, enough to stay ahead of Friescher, but not enough for victory. Indoor trials world champion Adam Raga found himself in an uncharacteristic 3rd position behind Friescher with 13 penalty points after the first turnaround. The 23-year-old from Uldecona turned in an impressive second lap, putting him on a total of 21 marks, 1 ahead of Kabastani. Raga has now moved into top spot in the championship with a 5-point lead ahead of his hometown hero. Raga's win was at the top of an all-Spanish podium, with Albert Kabastani 2nd and Mark Friescher 3rd in Tarragona. The riders now have a month off before round 3 in champion Fujinami's backyard at the Twin Ring Motegi in Japan. There are 7 more rounds, so the championship is far from decided, although Raga is where he wants to be and Fujinami most certainly isn't. The monumental Plaza de Toros in Mexico City is the world's largest bull ring, but one Friday night, the 42,000-seater venue staged an event that could hardly be further removed from its intended purpose. A capacity crowd watched as 9 freestyle motocross riders from 5 countries took it in turns to perform death-defying tricks. After a succession of whips, flips, supermans and can-cans, a panel of 5 judges marked each maneuver and narrowed the field down to 3 riders for a final. An American victory was assured, as all 3 riders going head-to-head in the evening's climax were from the USA. Kenny Bartram had received the highest score in the opening round, but failed to reproduce his earlier form and finished 3rd with a score of 92.6 points. The runners-up place went to Jeremy Stenberg. Nicknamed Twitch because he suffers from Tourette's syndrome, Stenberg picked up an impressive final score of 94.4 points, but it would not be enough to seal the victory. That honour went to Ronnie Renner, who topped the podium with a score of 94.6. Renner dropped to his knees as the judges revealed their final mark, just 0.2 ahead. The cream of the freestyle motocross world gathers in Madrid in late July for another night of crossfighter action. So, whether you're getting it all crossed up, staying abreast of the competition, or just sliding through life, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.